You're listening to the Turn Autism Around podcast, episode number 102. I'm your host, Dr. Mary Barbera, and today I have a very different topic for you. I have a co-founder of an app that's used for kids with autism. His name is Mitja Mavsar, and he's from Slovenia. And he's the dad to 4 boys. He's a husband, and he's a co-founder of a company called Blub Inc. Their products, Speech Blubs and Reading Blubs, was launched in 2017, and their products have already helped over 3 million kids with speech delays and autism, as well as things like Down syndrome. So today we're talking about the app. We're also talking about video modeling, screen time, joint attention, hyperlexia, and of course, how to build speech using the app called Speech Blubs. So let's get to this exciting interview with Mitja Mavsar. So thanks so much for joining us today, Mitja.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. So just tell our listeners, if you will, a little bit about yourself. So we can kick off the show. I know I usually start with describe your fall into the autism world, but you're not really in the autism world. So just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with this app building business.
Yeah, sure. So here I am in Slovenia. We are in lockdown. When I was, it starts with when I was a little boy, I had speech problems. I think nobody actually understood what I'm saying when I was 4. So I went to a speech therapy. They fixed most of the things. You'll probably see what they didn't fix or things like that.
No, I have no idea. You sound good to me.
Okay, thank you. But then, the one actually articulation error stayed with me until I was 16, probably. So it's
wow.
Speech therapy was a big saver for me because when I was a teenager, like kids get nasty. And when I fixed that, basically, this was a good thing for my self-confidence. This was good for my future development as a person. Then I started working in the internet fields. So as a user experience designer, this was like a career for 15 years. We were working with many different startups, and I realized that it would be nice to have a startup. That was basically the thing. I was at that time I was very interested in psychology. Also child psychology, because I had 2 kids at the time. Now I have 4. Things have changed. We also have many more users than at the time when I had 2 kids. But basically what happened was I met a guy who was 20 at the time. I was 33. And this guy had... on some workshop, there was an idea. Okay, what if we would help kids with an app? Kids with problems with speech, nothing particular. But the idea was to move something with the person's voice. So it would be a voice-controlled app. If you would make a sound, a ball would or animation would happen or something. So this guy came to me and said, "Okay, you old guy, can you help me? Can you help me with this project and thing?" And I said, "Sure, let's do some research." I had 0 experience with speech therapy. I had experience with speech therapists as a child, but that doesn't really count. So we were really not confident in our knowledge. Should we just enter like speech therapy? It was 5 years ago, 6, 7, maybe even. So what we did, we met speech therapists in Slovenia first. Then we went to the States. We were showing our little prototype to many speech therapists in California. And we were sure, there must be, this big American world, Silicon Valley. There should be a lot of technology in this world. But, these therapists were like, they were just like, usually Americans, you say, this is amazing, this is awesome, and think they were just like, screen time and speech therapy, this doesn't go well hand in hand. So we were kind of, will this work or not? So we went back, and basically we decided to do it anyway, although it didn't seem as a good business at the start. But it felt like, if we would be doing this, we would be doing something good for the humanity and for children, because you have so many startups out there who just, turn money around, and helping kids felt like a good thing to do. So we proceeded, and the first idea about animation and stuff fall apart because we didn't have any animators in the area. All of them were working for the hot new startup in town. So we came to an idea. Okay, what if we simply record children? What if we do something very natural? We record other children, and children will repeat after those children in video. So we went to the studio, and this is a very interesting story. We went into the studio. We had 2 speech therapists there. We had kids in front of the camera, and we did some very basic, I think it was, I'm not sure how is it called, but it's oral exercises, something that is it's not some SLPs say we do it all the time. Many say this is not causing speech sounds. But anyways, we were in the studio, and we had a very simple exercise that the child in front of the camera was showing, and it was like imitate a fish. Okay, and we got this.
So just move a mouth open and closed.
Just open and close. We were planning to call this exercise a fish. So what we did, we were in the studio, and there was a video, first video we ever shot, and there was like me and Jernej, our CEO, co-founder, and parents and therapists, and we were looking at this video. And then Jernej, bumps me and says, look around. Everyone is doing it. And everyone in the studio was like imitating the fish, and it was hilarious. It was like, okay, we are onto something. This is something we didn't know. It's called video modeling. We didn't know. We didn't do it on purpose. It was like, this works. And then,
it took off from there. And this was just a couple of years ago. This is 2017 when you launched Speech Blubs.
Well, we launched Speech Blubs in 2017. We launched a Slovenian version in 2015, just for the sake of testing with the parents and stuff.
Is it just in 2 languages?
No, it's actually there is no Slovenian version anymore.
Okay.
It's basically then we follow the market. We wouldn't be in Slovenia. You can imagine it's a 2 million country. So I think we had 150 registered SLPs. So it's not even a market. So we got hooked with an American producer who recorded videos in the American with the American kids. We checked the kids with different SLPs. I think for every video we have like 3 SLPs checking the kids. And from that on, we released a US version. Then we got complaints from British parents that words spoken in the app are not proper English. So we did UK version, and then we did Spanish version, Portuguese, and French. So now we have all these languages within the app. So a child can also, learn a second language using our app. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So I took a look at the app, and I know you have now 3 million users up until this point, right?
Yeah.
And basically it is real kids And then sounds are made like animal sounds, like let's make the sound of a monkey. And then there's like an animated monkey that pops up, and then the kid makes a monkey sound. And then the child user on the other end is supposed to do it too. And there's like bars that go across as you're doing it. It's quite complex, and and then it's simple at the same time. It's kind of a cross between being very complex and very simple altogether. But you did bring up video modeling, and I think that's an area where I know I've done a video blog on it. We can link that in the show notes. I know it's an evidence-based procedure strategy. And can you, for our listeners, explain what video modeling is briefly?
So in real life, if you want to learn speech or language, or basically anything, social skills, whatever, you need to be exposed to other people, watching them, observing their faces. If you happen to be on the autism spectrum, then you're not so interested in faces. So basically what we did with the app is something very natural, and that natural thing, if you put so video modeling is a research based technique that follows the neuroscience of mirror neurons. So if we observe other people, our brain is basically doing whatever their brain is doing. So this is like what happens
like a mirror
in our brain.
Image. Like when you look in a mirror, the mirror image, there's mirror neurons that are firing.
Not just when you. Yeah, not just that. If I open my mouth right now, like okay, in my brain there's a special thing that triggered, and this thing has caused me to open my mouth. Okay, and in your brain, when you were just observing this, the same areas triggered. So, okay, even if I'm just observing you nodding or doing whatever, my brain is doing the same thing as the model's brain. So that's basically the what has been proven, that how we learn. Basically, we observe, even for example, in our case, our app is full of videos of children. Even if a child is not imitating, even if the child is just watching that person, that the teachers, kids teachers in our app, basically the thing works. And how we know that is that there was one big motivation at the beginning, I must say, at least for me and also for other team members, and it was our therapist at the time. So the therapist we worked with worked a lot with kids on the autism spectrum and kids on with Down syndrome. So we had this boy who had Down syndrome and also some parts on the spectrum, so to say. And this boy was like, every therapy was like, he had glasses, and in 30 seconds he would throw away his glasses, and he wouldn't cooperate with the therapist. Okay. And then they introduced this app to him. Okay, he was a very lovable person. I think he was 5 or 6 at the time, totally nonverbal. And when they introduced the iPad with these kids, and okay, kids on with Down syndrome are especially kind and so on. So he started hugging the iPad. Okay, and this iPad basically, and Speech Blubs app in that iPad was the trick for him. Like his mom and him, they were like doing this for 20 minutes every day. And I remember that after 6 months, he came to the office. He came to an office from time to time, and he was, for the first time, he looked at me, and started communicating with gestures. And for the first month, he was just observing the kids on the app. He wasn't participating but then, just flourished, and it was good to watch.
Yeah. And you mentioned something earlier, that you said kids with autism don't tend to look at faces. And I recently did a podcast, I believe it's 93, which we can link in the show notes as well. And it's about the work of Dr. Ami Klin, who is down at Emory. He's a really famous autism researcher. He just published some new studies. And he did a lot of research on eye tracking amongst kids with autism, typical kids, and twins, identical and fraternal twins. And what he found is kids, babies, and infants and toddlers that do go on to get a diagnosis of autism really are focusing not, like you said, not on people's faces and not on the social interaction and the nonverbal cues. He shows this video, for instance, of two toddlers playing in a child-sized wagon with a door that swings open and closed. And typical toddlers, their eye tracking would go to kind of the quote unquote fight between the two kids on, I want the door open, I want the door closed, I want the door open, I want the door closed. Where the kids with autism who later got diagnosed with autism would simply be focusing on the door opening and closing, hence missing the whole social interaction. And what Dr. Klin said was, if this is happening in 5 minutes where they're missing 1,000 social interactions, very split second, eye contact and turn and frowny face and, resistance, then if they are exposed to high amounts of screen time, especially screen time that shows social stuff, but they're focusing on the wrong things, this really could be a problem. And I did also do a video blog years ago called Screen Time and Why I Wouldn't Ditch It Totally. And you said earlier, like some SLPs are like, we want to get away from screen time. Even with the COVID-19 worldwide shutdown, people are like, oh, we want to get away from screen time. It's like, it's impossible to get away from screen time, but we need to use smart screen time. And you talk a little bit about that in terms of smart screen time. So how does your app and using your app differ from just sitting kids in front of TVs or iPads for hours a day?
Yeah, I just watched a documentary saying that on average, preschoolers watch screens from 4 to 6 hours a day. Wow. And in the States, it's supposed to be the worst. It should be it's an average of 6 hours. So that's wow. That's excessive. Like if you, I see screen time as any other thing in our environment that causes dopamine release. Like if you it's Halloween time, so kids will eat too much sugar. If you let kids eat sugar every day, there is a high chance they will get obese. Okay, and it's the same with screen time. If you use it in a good way, it's not gonna hit you. If you use it too much, you have a problem. And just like kids, also adults, adults are the big problem. I sometimes, instead of playing with my kids, I play video games, or I watch Instagram all the time. And and in this situation, kids don't get enough face-to-face interaction. Okay, now I'm leading to actually answering your question. So if you want a child to be, to develop speech and social and other important skills, they need FaceTime. They need to interact with their parents, with their peers, and so on. They need to see people who don't wear masks, and they need to have focus on that. Okay, so what's the difference between? So when we were like starting out, we were observing all other popular kids apps. We are now, I think we are number 9 app in the US App Store, in the kids part of the App Store. And all other apps, you see like pretty animations. You see those, as a user experience designer, I know how to trigger someone to use the thing. I know how to trigger people to use it again and again and again. And we have a situation where parents are glued to their screen. So they are children learn from their example, of course. And we have kids who don't have anything else to do, so they do it as well. So I think smart screen time starts with limiting time to screens. It starts with parent being there, parent explaining that. There's been research about that. So they were teaching kids all sorts of things by showing them videos of things, and they learned a bit. They learned 50% of what they would learn if the thing would be shown to them in real life. But the problem, the interesting thing is that if there was a parent present explaining them what he's seeing, being there, the learning improved a lot. It was not there as it was with real life experience, of course not, but it was much better. So good screen time is, any cartoon can be a good screen time. Not any, but many cartoons are done in a way that children actually learn stuff from cartoons. But if the parent is there, it's so much better, explaining the thing. You can draw after it what you've seen in the cartoon and so on. What we did special.
And you can also, as the parent, they can, with the fish example, making your mouth, go back and forth like a fishy, making bubbles, or the monkey sound, you could engage your child in the app. Okay, the boy's doing the monkey sound. Oh, watch mommy do the monkey sound. Ooh, okay, and so that builds in another key concept, which is we have in common with your app and my online courses is the importance of joint attention, and is sharing in the moments of even screen time, or sharing in the moments of something funny happening, or sharing in the moments of that live speech interaction of holding up a banana because the child wants a banana and saying banana, 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 and giving it to the child, that process of stimulus pairing. It's like when I looked at your app and got to know you a little bit better, I realized like how many core concepts that we both engage in within our work to help kids. And so I think the joint attention is huge too.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree on that. What we did special is that we didn't put so much animation in it. We put real kids in the center, and then we use other things to keep the child's interest engaged. We have, for example, we can check in analytics, for example, if how children behave, and we have some users who do it like over and over and over again. You could call it like repetitive behavior that is so familiar for autism. But I think smart screen time happens if the child if the parent is involved. In parents are here, the most important thing, as with any therapy or typical upbringing. If the child is like alone for 6 hours watching whatever he wants on TV and YouTube, well, we don't know what will happen, but probably he will not develop social skills. Even, there's like mention in the literature that kids who watch too much TV develop autism spectrum behaviors. Of course they do, like kids who are not playing with other kids out there and are watching alone their YouTube Of course, they will not develop typical social skills. Of course, they will have problems with speech and language and everything. Just like if they would be eating candy all the time, they would get obese. That's what happens. Humans we adapt to any situation, and if the situation is watching cartoons, then our body and brain will wire to that situation and to build us to be better TV watchers. I don't know, to be more passive. That's
yeah. One of the things that I've focused on is the ability for a parent or professional to gain what we call echoic control of having the child being able to echo, and even typically developing kids don't always have the ability to echo, just spontaneously echo. Even at, 15, 18 months, it hasn't even developed in many typically developing kids. And with kids with autism, it's quite common that they remain, some remain non-vocal, not speaking, and don't get the echoic abilities. And so we work really hard within my online courses to build imitation responses, imitation with objects, that oral motor, make your face do oral motor if you can. But I am not a big proponent on touching kids' faces or trying to. But one thing I do always say is that we can't pull things out of kids' mouths. Even if they can say banana, you can't make a child say banana ever, even if you have what we call echoic control. We can put the echoic control podcasts or videos that I created in the show notes. But one of the best ways to gain that echoic control is just by repetition, stimulus pairing, and video modeling, kind of going in the back door, making it fun, making it appealing, having a reinforcement system built in, which I'm sure as an app developer, you are a real pro at reinforcement systems built in. The noises we hear, some parenting experts are like, we don't believe in threats or punishments or bribes. And I'm good with all that. But they also say we don't believe in rewards or reinforcement. It's like, no, the whole world, whether you believe in it or not, we're all operating on the principles of positive reinforcement. It's like saying you don't believe in gravity. And so as an app developer,
that's the basis of all psychology developed in the last centuries, like it's behavioral science. It's, nothing to add.
It's like gravity. You reinforce the behavior is going to go up.
Well said.
So, yeah. So, okay, let's just pivot quickly. I think, really important. And I think there's such great videos you have within the app. And it sounds like you really have done a great job to expand it to 5 languages. And you also have your newest app is called Reading Blubs, and it covers early literacy and pre-reading skills. And I know I have done some work on hyperlexia. My son Lucas was hyperlexic when he was little, and that's the ability to read or recognize letters before you can really speak. And it's part of the brain, apparently, in autism that gets overstimulated by things like letters and numbers. And I think a lot of times parents, like including myself, get very big on like, okay, it's hyperlexia, it's not autism. It's like, well, no, it's kind of both. Because if you have, not to say that every hyperlexic kid has autism, because I do think that some kids with very high IQs might be particularly precocious with reading and that sort of thing. But one of the things when I looked briefly at your Reading Blub app was you're not really focusing on letter recognition as your first thing. You're focusing on more of the listening to stories and comprehension, which I think is so much more important, especially for kids who are in the preschool toddler years and not the hyperlexia.
So again, we did our research. We have spoken with parents, teachers, therapists, all of that, and we noticed one interesting trend, which is quite obvious. Parents are not reading every day with their children. It's like they're supposed to read, but they don't. You have parents who are tired because they're working, 2 jobs at a time. You have dads who are, totally like square, so they don't have imagination to really play with their children, to make the book fun. So we also noticed that there are some apps on the market that are trying to help to read to 6, 7-year-olds when actually it's time for reading. But before that, for preschoolers, it's mostly time for stories. Of course, they can play with letter names, or maybe even better if they don't. But the most important thing is that they hear enough stories. So what we wanted to do here is basically, we use the same concept. So you have a child reader, which is trying to do the same what a perfect parent would do in bedtime story time. So what a perfect parent would do, he would read the child. He would read to the child very enthusiastically. He would ask questions afterwards. He would let the child to touch things in the book. So this is basically reading Blubs. So you have a child reading a story to you. You are pushing the main characters forward by pressing them. I don't know. We have an alpaca there, and you can shave the alpaca. It's like a flat book digitalized in a really good way. We have really good results. Kids are following these stories all the time, and after the story, the same child comes to the screen again and says, okay, so what was the alpaca name? Or what color was the bike? Things like that. And you have to push the buttons to answer the question that was posed by a real person. So again, we're trying to make some smart screen time for our users. It is available under the same subscription. So if you are a Speech Blubs subscriber, you get this for free. Or if you subscribe to Reading Blubs, you get. So we have one customer who can use this Speech Blubs app maybe with 1, 2, 3-year-old, and maybe Reading Blubs with a, let's say, 2.5. I've seen 2.5-year-olds using them successfully, but it's mostly from 3 to 5, I would say. So if it's a typical child, if it's not a typical child, then probably later, or depends on the particular place. Yeah.
And again, I'm sure with the Reading Blubs, it would be ideal or required for a parent to also be there monitoring, so it just doesn't become scrolling back to shave the llama. Okay, going back, shave the llama again, because that's where kids with autism might get stuck on repetitiveness. I developed a book program in my online courses, and part of the book program is for the parents to go to the library once a week and get out 5 or 7 or 10 fresh books and return the old pack, and to be reading very simple books and to be asking very simple questions. And with the COVID shutdown, many libraries were closed, and so someone recommended this other app called Epic, which is a full stock of books. And again, I think the more we can, have resources where we can personally read to our kids, and we subscribe to the Epic app because it's a great thing, even for my 24-year-old with severe autism, to be able to pick out very simple books and to go through them, ask him questions, and to fill our days, which, for many parents worldwide, filling our days, especially with a child with autism, is particularly challenging. And I think we're all trying our best. I think, apps like yours, Speech Blubs and Reading Blubs, is just a great opportunity to have just more tools in our toolbox. I even am a big advocate of parents making their own videos. But the problem with that is, again, how many videos are you going to be able to make? I mean, you have a full production company and you're constantly adding things, and there's different kids, and so you don't get that repetitive thing of watching mommy sing, head, shoulders, knees, and toes like 10 times in a row. The more flexible we can get our kids, the more variety, the more new stories and new ways to do things, I think the more beneficial these tools will be.
Exactly. Yeah. Agreed.
All right, cool. Well, I really think we covered a lot here. I do know that I am going to be able to give an affiliate link. We'll make that marybarbera.com/blubs, BLUBS. Cool name, different name. So you can check out Speech Blubs and Reading Blubs. It's the same subscription. It's just a few dollars a month. You can get a year subscription or a monthly, and you can do a free trial, which is always good to just check out things, because it may not be right for your.
There's one thing in our app that is completely free before the paywall, so to say, and it's a screener. So basically, you enter your child's birth date, and you get all the milestones. And it's not just speech and language and reading. It's also pragmatics, play, hearing. So all the milestones. I think we screen like 150,000 kids every month on a good month, and it's something, what I see here right now in the situation all over the world is that. If you have a 2-year-old, you will wait quite some time for an SLP to evaluate your child,
also wait
or other
for
therapists,
developmental pediatrician, and you'll wait for ABA treatment. No, I mean, you're absolutely right. We had one of our members who joined my toddler course. Her child was 20 months of age, no diagnosis, no therapies. And she was in the UK, and she said her wait list for an SLP was 18 months. That's just for a speech and language pathology evaluation.
Yeah.
And the waiting lists are horrendous, which is why I'm writing my second book, Turn Autism Around. And it's really an action guide for parents while they wait for either a diagnosis or treatment, because as we both know and believe, parents can make the world of difference. So getting apps like yours and learning more. And if you're a professional out there listening, empower the parents to learn more and to really have some tools to engage your child, I think is just a great thing. So you can get everything, the free screener, the free trial, the subscription at marybarbera.com/blubs. You can also check out all the show notes to all the resources we mentioned throughout. So I'd like to wrap up our episodes with part of my podcast goals are for parents and professionals to be less stressed and lead happier lives. So as a father of 4 and an app developer and a husband, any self-care tips or stress management tips that you can think of that you do, either every day or when you have time to kind of reduce your stress?
Yeah, it has. There's been like 3 stressful days right now, and I haven't left the home like for 3 days. Usually in the lockdown, I just go out in nature with kids or alone, but usually, not alone. Usually with kids. Stress is a big issue. I think we just need to watch less screens and see more nature. And if we do that, and if not remove screens, but basically just reduce, just like we need to reduce the amount of the number of times we visit the refrigerator. It's like.
Everything is a balance. Yep.
Everything is a balance. Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah. I like the idea of going out into nature. And I do know that for me, that also reduces stress. So thank you so much, Mitja. It's been a pleasure to get to know you better. And I look forward to watching your growth and being a part of that, real effort to help kids with speech issues, with autism, and everyone who is struggling in terms of talking. So thank you so much for your time today and have a good one.
Thank you.